So my name's Louise Brown and I'm here with Gareth Nicholls, who's the director of Trainspotting, and this is just a bit of a chat really designed for schools to find out a little bit more about how it came to be and why it came to be. And I suppose one of the things I wanted to say to start with was it's set in Edinburgh, of course, but it feels like it works in Glasgow. Even seeing our trailer felt that's a Glasgow kind of feel to it. You know, why is it something that feels like it's got a Glaswegian feel?
I think it does feel Glaswegian, but I'd say it feels like any city. I think it works in any city where there's social housing problems, where there's deprivation, where there's drug problems, you know. I mean, it's been translated into God knows how many languages. There's a Japanese version on at the moment, you know, and you wouldn't think it would translate to Japan, but actually what it's dealing with politically, socially, culturally, I think transcends. So yeah, it is specific to Edinburgh in terms of the dialect, the language, but I think what the characters are going through are, it could be universal. Any city. Yeah. But obviously, I mean, it fits really well to Glasgow as well.
And of course, it started life, you know, as a novel, became a play, and then pretty iconic film, and then we've got another one coming up. But what is it about this story, do you think, that keeps on interesting people?
I don't think it goes away, does it? The problems the characters are going through. You know, it's set late 80s, Thatcher era, poll tax was going on, austerity, lots of people out of work and unemployed. Sounds a bit like now, doesn't it?
Yes,
you know?
It does.
So I think it's always there, and I think now's the perfect time to revisit it, actually, because we're in a similar sort of state of affairs to the late 80s. People are disenfranchised, and I think that's what these characters are. Disenfranchised, trying to find a way out.
And without much in the way of choices?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. I think that's what the whole crux of the show is about. Choice or lack of choice.
Is it?
And I think so. Yeah. And whether it's about those choices you make, whether that's free will or whether that's forced upon you by, all the kind of social, economic, cultural stuff. You know, these characters live in North Edinburgh, a very deprived area, and they don't have the same choices as other people. They're not starting on a level playing field. You know, but a character like Renton actually is incredibly intelligent, and he grapples with this notion of choice, and quite often uses it as an excuse. I feel, you know, I'm from this area. I don't have a choice, therefore, I'm gonna go shoot up. You know, so it's not as clean cut as feeling sorry for these characters. Not at all. They make a lot of bad decisions. That feels like their own choice.
That's really interesting.
But it's whether that's ingrained in them, or whether there's an objectivity to the choices they make, and it's different for every character, actually. But that's what the play grapples with quite a lot.
That's interesting. So it sounds like that's something that was essential stuff that you were talking about in the rehearsal room with the actors. So that kind of context of whether or not it's kind of forced upon you by your circumstances and your context, and that balance between that and how much you just making that choice of your own free will anyway. So was something that was talked about throughout?
Yeah, and
is being talked about.
And is being talked about. I mean, the show's framed with the choose life speech.
Yeah.
Choose life, choose a job, choose a car, and we're trying to grapple with what that means, actually.
What have you come up with without?
Well, we're still figuring it out, but I think it's about Renton grappling with whether he wants to try and participate in life, in this version of life which gets thrust upon us, which is about I think he's talking about capitalism, actually, and about materialism, and about getting a family and getting a house and getting a mortgage and trappings of modern life as well. And he decides to reject that because he thinks it's nonsense. He's very anti-establishment. He thinks he actually thinks that drugs is liberating, and that the trappings of modern life is the thing that pins us down. And that's a thing that he grapples with throughout, and we've not got to the end yet, so I don't know what his final conclusion is.
It's so fascinating when it feels like that's so not the case in terms of drugs being liberating, you know, and it's just amazing that he can even. Well, he can't see him. He can't sort of see that situation. But I suppose that's part of the whole thing, isn't it? He's within it, and he can't necessarily see it from an outside point of view.
Yeah, I think so. And not to condone. What's not to say that drugs are good, but you know, we must be careful not to go, oh, what they're saying is all nonsense, and kind of become kind of poverty tourists.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think that's really important. We did a lot of research into drug use, and we watched a TED Talk called "Everything I Thought I Knew About Addiction Is Wrong," and that talks about drugs and heroin, about when they experience it, it's a way to connect, it's a way to bond with one another, and people they think that people who turn to drugs, turn to heroin and things, they have an inability to bond elsewhere, so that's where they bond, you know. So, you know, it's interesting that it all stems down to wanting to be part of a community of some sort.
It's interesting, isn't it, when you think about their relationships and how bonded or not they are as people and characters, and how much they can sort of trust or not each other, because there's so many examples where they don't have conventional kind of trusting relationships necessarily, but they've got different kinds of bonds, presumably.
Oh, massively, yeah. And each relationship works on a different set of values. You know, Begbie and Renton, Spud, Renton, Sick Boy, and Begbie. The kind of relationships between the different guys, and also Diane and Alison, the female characters, is fascinating. And they start in a certain place and they go on a huge journey, actually. So they're in a completely different place by the end of the play, and it's really interesting to track that. And that's not, and actually a lot of those relationships disintegrate, and that's not to do. I think it's not a play about drugs. It's worth saying. It's about so much more. It's just drugs is a byproduct of what they're going through, you know.
So if you were going to complete that sentence and say it's not a play about drugs, it's a play about. Oh, well, that was hard.
So many things, but I would say choice and lack of choice, philosophy of choice, about feeling trapped, about a whole host of things. How you find your place in the world. I don't know.
Do you know what's amazing is that actually, if somebody didn't know Trainspotting and they just heard our conversation, they might think this is such a serious play. It's going to be a really hard thing for us to watch. But it is really funny.
It's very funny.
Despite that, or because of that, I just don't know how is it so funny as well as hellish.
Oh, I think it's that classic thing about like the grimmest realities that like humour has to come out, because that's the only way people can survive. And I think these characters have a sense of a black, dark sense of humour. And Irving Welsh does the writer.
Of course.
It kind of just transcends any sort of misery that they're in. It's how they survive. Yeah,
it's wit, isn't it? It's amazing. Huge wit. You know?
They're really intelligent characters. Some of them are not intelligent academically, but incredibly intelligent emotionally. Others are not intelligent emotionally at all, but in terms of street intelligence or in terms of like academic, like Renton's
smart, isn't he?
So smart, too smart.
Yes,
too smart for his own good. Actually,
exactly. So tell us a bit about how you sort of worked in the room with the actors, I guess, to kind of develop some of the complexities and explore some of the complexities of these characters and these kind of unusual sort of relationships. How did you go about that?
We, dead simply, really, I just asked them questions about attitudes and relationships, and that's it. Attitudes and relationships to one another, to how they feel about the context the characters are in.
Yeah.
You know, and we do that through every scene of the play, and we try not to pin anything down until the last week, really. And
does that feel kind of, I don't know, sort of alarming or insecure in any way? The fact that nothing is sort of pinned down until, is that an unusual thing? Not for you, but what do you think? I
don't know whether it's unusual. Maybe it is. maybe like, a few years back I would have been very nervous by that, but I think you learn to trust the process actually. And I've done a few processes where I've been a little bit scared and pinned stuff down in the first week, and actually it's ended up like a dog's dinner, because you pin stuff down and what is it based on? You don't know the characters, you don't understand the text, you don't understand the context and setting, so all the choices you make are based on nothing, and you might be lucky, but more often than not you get found out. So I think you really need to understand the characters before you can make any choices. That's not to say we're just sat around a table, we get on his feet on the first day and we play, but it's about playing, it's about trial and error, it's about discovery, it's about just letting things sit, and then we make the decisions later on. Because it takes a while to understand text and actually to make sure we're all on the same page, and for me to understand the actors' choices. I steer them, but like it's their choice ultimately, I think. I don't want to impose anything.
That's interesting. Why is it? I mean, this might seem an obvious question, but why is it so important that it's their choice?
I think it needs to feel real. I think that's how you get the best type of acting, or the type of acting that I want from them. And it's about ownership as well. So it's about kind of creating a vested interest that we're all making this together. And I think if you it's like a team, innit? It's like a sports team actually. And you're the manager, and you've got to get everyone on the same page and get them revved up. And I don't think you can lead a team by kind of going, you must do this, you must do that. I think it's got to be.
It's more subtle, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
It's empowering them to make those choices. I suppose it's essential, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Really?
And also, I'm not the expert. They often are. So it's about getting good people around you and. Using them, using their brilliant talents.
So it's interesting because there's scenes like in a kind of conventional play, but there's also kind of these moments where characters speak directly to the audience. What kind of impact does that have, do you think? And also you can kind of understand that all these kind of the tensions and the dynamics and understanding the relationship between characters and scenes, but how differently do you deal with those bits where somebody is not interacting with somebody but maybe interacting with the audience or sharing their thoughts with the audience? How's that different?
We've been trying to figure out who the audience are for the characters when they're speaking to them. And we're still figuring it out. It's a really hard question.
Yeah, like why they do it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really hard question.
It is.
And sometimes you do want to go, it's just the audience. That's not helpful for... I mean, I actually think that's fine in some ways, but it's not helpful for an actor. Because they need to know what attitude they're playing. And if they don't know who they're talking to, then, they can't... They don't know an attitude.
That's right.
So it can change for different people. So what's useful, really, theatrically.
And you're still sort of finding that out as you go.
Yeah, I think some of them are landing.
Okay.
Others are a bit like, I don't know.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's so fluid, isn't it?
A little bit.
It.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Until later, I had this question about genre, which was something that some schools had wanted me to ask, and it would have sat back at the start of our conversation, but I'll ask it anyway. I mean, we were talking earlier about what genre as an idea even work for something like Trainspotting? If somebody said to you, Gareth, what genre is Trainspotting? What on earth would you say?
Other people would say it's in-your-face theatre, wouldn't they? Because it was born out of an era in the 90s where there was this new genre of in-your-face theatre, along with Sarah Kane and Matt Ravenhill, things like that.
And how would you define that for people who might not be familiar with it at its simplest?
Well, I'm no expert, but I think it seemed to be theatre that certainly mostly spoke directly to an audience, dealt with quite volatile issues, and often had some sort of shock value.
Yeah.
I think, in terms of what Trainspotting is, this production of Trainspotting, I wouldn't categorise it as in-your-face theatre. I'm not interested in the play for its shock value.
Right.
I don't think that's interesting. I think audiences have moved on, and I don't my taste is much more about what the characters are going through. There are shocking scenes, but I think it's not shock for shock's sake. It's shock for going, look at the environment these people are in, and look at the choices they're forced or not forced to take. So yeah, our version kind of flips around in genre. It's peculiar. There's lots of there's these direct address monologues. There's kind of this dirty realism, you might call it, quite naturalistic acting. There's these highly theatrical moments that we've chosen to push when they're on drugs. We explore what does it feel like to shoot up and be high on heroin for a 10-second moment. There's a moment where he's going cold turkey, where we've gone a little bit bonkers in terms of him tripping, I suppose. So it's a big kind of hodgepodge of stuff is ours. And I think we've kind of come to a conclusion we just need to own that and just jam it together. And actually, that's the charm of it.
Yeah, totally.
That it's jammed together. It's a little bit rough around the edges.
The novel's got a kind of jammed together feel
about
exactly.
it, hasn't it, though, yeah. It's not linear, isn't the novel?
No, not
you
at all.
never know whose perspective it's speaking from. It goes different tenses constantly. It goes from really colloquial dialect to quite standard English. It's all over the place, and that's what's brilliant about it.
Yeah, keeps you on your toes, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Just thinking and asking questions about what is going on.
Absolutely,
now,
and I think the theatre piece, this production, will do ask similar sort of questions of the audience. Actually,
really
you got to keep up.
Yeah.
You know, it's not spoon-fed,
no.
And I think that's a good thing.
So in terms of like design and stuff, tell me a bit about the kind of conversations you had with Max Jones to sort of create the world this is going to be in.
Yeah.
So, it's a small cast on a big stage, but you're kind of, that's a bit of a specialism for you.
Yeah.
Amazing things with just two-handers on the stage for six. And design has played quite a big part of that as well. Yeah. So, I mean, you don't want to give the set away, I know that. But can you tell us anything about some of the things you said to him in terms of how he might support your world?
Sure. Well, we know it's 5 actors playing probably 15 characters.
Yeah.
And so there's lots of character changes, and so I didn't want to hide any of that. So I asked him to create a theatrically fluid environment where the cast could get changed on stage, where we wouldn't be hiding who these characters are, who these actors are playing, you know. We wouldn't be hiding the fact that Chloe Ann, who's the actress that plays Diane and Alison and various mums and judge and interviewer, we wouldn't be trying to pretend that, these are different actors.
Yeah.
It was very clear. And so that kind of, so we've created a more presentational style at points. And then at other points it goes into quite hard naturalism. So the environment we needed to create, I wanted a kind of, a fluid space, but it was really important that we had something to bring to fore the environment that these characters would live in, did live in. It's like the real people, but where it's set in the book. So essentially it's set within a kind of composite Muirhouse housing estate, inside outside environment that can also be the pub, that can also be a club, that can become lots of different places, right? Really fast as well. Yeah, I'm not overly keen on
dragging
changes.
It out. No.
Yeah.
And are there like key bits of set or props, just like key things that come all out, whiz in and out?
Yeah, we tried to keep that to a minimum. Totally. Yeah, we have a sofa that whizzes in and out a few times, but more or less things are on stage at all times. So there's the cot in the corner. In the flat, but when they're in the pub, the cot's still in the corner.
That's really interesting because, I mean, a lot of the audience coming, you imagine, will have read the book or at least seen the film, so that cot is such a resonant symbol as well as a reality that the fact it's there all the time, it's just dead interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the toilet as well. I think this is the thing, there's so many iconic images that everyone's waiting for. To a certain extent, we were just like, we need to lay it bare and put it on stage from the start. And not hide it. No,
it's like going to see a Shakespeare play and everyone mouthing the words of like to be or not to be. Just thought get it all out there to begin with.
Absolutely.
Say a little bit about lighting, if you can. I don't know if you're...
We're not there yet at all. We'll start to think of ideas next week.
So none of that is kind of preset in any way. You've got thoughts about it, maybe. But
I've certainly got notions. And Philip Gladwell, who's doing our lighting, he'll start to see runs next week.
Right.
And then we'll discuss, and then we'll kind of make. Yeah. But so he will react to what we've done on stage.
Okay.
Very much.
That's really interesting. Because lighting has been so pivotal. I'm thinking about like Into That Darkness and Blackbird.
Yeah.
Massive lighting changes, sort of quite arresting, surprising moments, blackouts, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I guess it's just whatever is going to suit the needs of
absolutely.
World, isn't it?
And again, we are still figuring it out.
Yeah,
I'm not just saying that, we genuinely are.
Mm-hmm.
We've got notions.
Uh-huh.
I think there's a couple of like bigger moments which will be fun to play with.
Yeah.
And there's a huge club scene which we can have a lot of fun with. There might be some colour in this show, whereas all my other shows have never had colour.
No, they've never had colour. What about music and stuff like that? I mean, I know that the film's kind of got this iconic sort of soundtrack. Not that this is a different thing, but have you used some of the music? Have you been able to use some of the music? Have you used other music? How important is music or sound in it?
Yeah. So, I mean, we are setting it very specifically in the late 80s. So the soundtrack will be late 80s era. So we're looking at New Order. A lot of New Order, actually. Kind of New Order. If we get the rights, we hope to get the rights. Yeah, and then in terms of... So that's music, and there's quite a few moments where that'll kick in, but which will be very specific to the era. But then in terms of sound, I think there's something about how we can use sound to kind of track Renton's character arc. And this thing he's grappling with about whether to invest in life, traditional notions of life or not.
Yes. What are you thinking in terms of that then? How might sound track that?
Well, again, I don't know, because MJ starts to come in towards the end of this week.
Okay.
So we're only layering the sound on now.
Okay.
But I think we just use sound to intensify certain moments where he's having a moment of conflict, quite simply, actually. So whether that'll be about making the world feel more claustrophobic for him through sound. I think sound and lack of sound will be interesting as well. So if there's a lot of sound throughout and those moments where there's no sound, and we can play that trick where you record an empty auditorium and then you play it back in an empty auditorium, and so it doesn't sound like the sound, but if there's a moment where you cut it out, that sounds like silence for the first time, which is a really weird effect.
I didn't even know.
We did that in Into That Darkness when Blythe came out of the box the first time. So you get used to the sound of silence.
Yes, in the auditorium, the real sound of silence.
But then you can cut it out, and so it sounds like you're in a vacuum all of a sudden. It's like it does a fake thing to your inner ear. I think we can play with that in terms of just being on drugs and stuff.
That's
like
very
that.
disorientating.
Well, it's just a bit odd. You kind of go, you go like this with your ears.
Without knowing, because actually you'll be watching the show, so you're not going to be grappling with that. It's a sort of subliminal thing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's very interesting. I'm aware of time, and you've got a rehearsal to go to. I'm going to scout through and see if I've got any major questions. I know you've got a choreographer, a movement specialist as part of it. You said you had a club scene, obviously, but why has it been so important to have a movement specialist in this show?
Just because there's these highly theatrical moments where I wanted to explore the feeling of being on heroin, the joys of that and the utter despair of that. So I was interested in playing with that through movement. I think, film is a perfect genre for Trainspotting because you can do lots of amazing close-up shots. You can film underwater. You can do all this stuff that we can't do on stage, actually. So we needed to find a way that was about our medium, and movement felt like the perfect way to explore that, really. I mean, not that it's a big movement-ish show, or that you'll necessarily go, oh,
Yeah.
there's that big movement piece.
Yeah.
But actually, subtly, I think I think I just wanted to explore. Yeah, what does it do to the body when you're on heroin? What are the long-term effects of it, and how it makes the body more dilapidated as you go by? You know, I think it's important to look at physicality. Yeah,
Absolutely.
So we're playing with that, really.
Yeah. I've got my last question. It's something a little bit about what. I don't know what the answer to this is. What would you hope the audience are going to go away either thinking about or maybe feeling?
Oh, I hope they'll be entertained. It's a it's a really entertaining show. It's really funny. It's thrilling at points. I think it is very moving at points in a really dirty way. Yeah. That is quite provocative, I suppose, in some ways. I just hope they'll think about the situation the characters are in, whether they agree with the decisions they make or find it absolutely abhorrent. Probably both. I think it's both for me. And I hope they'll be moved in some way, and I hope they'll laugh now and again.
Thank you very much, Gareth. I hope you have a good rehearsal today.
Thank you.
Thank you.